Great. Adele says that you can all hear me loud and clear. Okay, so the way the morning's going to run, I'm going to tell you guys about raw cacao for about 20 minutes. Various things, why it's healthy, what the difference between raw and cooked is, what the difference between cocoa and cacao is, what the science is currently saying, and then telling you about our new African cacao. And then we'll be doing a demo. Baron and Katara will join me, and we're going to make some amazing chocolates the way we make it for ourselves. And I'll be showing you guys how to make a medicinal tea that I do for us every morning using medicinal mushrooms and then chocolate. So let's get started with some info. Just give me a sec to get all this ready. All right, so what is raw cacao? I've been doing courses on chocolate and cacao for, I think, about 15 years now. I was first introduced to raw cacao by David Avocado Wolf many, many years ago. The story goes, Baron and I were living in England, and we had just been to a trade show, a national organic trade show. And there was a guy called Jason Vale jumping on a mini trampoline, super healthy, super into alternative health perspectives. And the talk that he was doing was on how toxic and dangerous chocolate is and how you should kick the habits. Now, Baron, for those who don't know, is a third-generation baker's daughter, loves chocolate. So when we heard this, we were mortified. We can't eat chocolate, and it was terrible. I didn't like that answer. I started researching online. Back then, there was very little information available on raw cacao. But I found David Wolf and ordered some of his cacao nibs, and we never looked back. It was a complete life-changing moment for us the first time we chewed cacao nibs. I mean, since then, raw cacao is now available in various forms, including powder and paste, which is some of the ingredients I'm going to use today. But I very early on my journey started then researching deeper on what cacao is and what the difference in cocoa and cacao is. And one of my early books that really informed me was Naked Chocolate by David Wolf. Highly recommend you guys look into that book. But let's get some background. 80% of the world eats chocolate, but no one actually eats the real thing. I always find this amazing. Everyone's eating a highly processed, altered, and damaged version of the real food. Theobroma cacao, which is the binomial, literally means food of the gods. So the person who named cacao recognized that cacao is a profoundly amazing food, different to many other foods. It was revered so much in ancient Mexico that it was used as money. And it was currency up until 1887. You could buy things, avocados, whatever you wanted with cacao. And chocolate is actually so complex. It has so many chemical ingredients, as in natural chemical ingredients, that it can't be synthesized or recreated. So even today, chocolate flavors aren't anywhere close to the real food. So raw cacao really is keeping it as close to its original food as possible, undamaging it, not putting any chemicals or poisons, keeping it as close to the bean off the tree or dried as possible. So we're talking about low temperature processing. That's where the raw comes from. Chocolate is normally processed up to 150 degrees Celsius in the roasting part of it. Our cacao is processed at 50 degrees Celsius and below, so it's still intrinsically raw. It contains all of its nutrients that haven't been damaged by the roasting process. So what is the difference then between cocoa and cacao? So cocoa is what you would find in most supermarkets, sold as chocolate powder. It's massively heated, as I've said. They add chemicals to it, like genetically modified soy lecithin and chemical flavorings like vanilla flavorings. They also use trans fats or hydrogenated vegetable oils in a lot of cheaper chocolates. Refined white sugar is obviously the most common additive, and refined white sugar has been shown to damage your body in many different ways, causing type 2 diabetes. So being aware of reducing the amount of sugar in your diet is essential, and chocolate is a usual source for that, or cocoa is. And then obviously they also add dairy products to it, and this is not happy grass-fed organic dairy. This is factory farm dairy that's powderized and added to chocolate afterwards. So you basically have this incredible food that then gets damaged and altered to a point where it is no longer a health food, it's now toxic food. So I love the fact that I can teach people that chocolate is actually a health food. You just have to eat it in its natural whole state. I find it hilarious that the guy who invented adding dairy to cacao's name was Daniel Peter, a Dutchman. I'm trying to do the opposite, get people to remove the dairy from the cacao. One of the research studies that I found recently showed that roasting and alkalizing cacao through the standard processing method loses up to 90% of the antioxidants. I can post that study for you guys here, but I've got a lot of studies I'm going to mention, and we'll do a little ebook which you'll be able to get after this talk, and then you can see all of this for yourself. So what makes chocolate or cacao a superfood? So it's estimated about 1,200 different chemicals, individual chemical constituents in cacao, making it the most complex food substance on earth. There are three main reasons why I recommend eating chocolates. The first one is for magnesium. Magnesium is a mineral that's most concentrated in your heart. It's essential for heart health, but it's also essential for your overall vascular system and your muscles. Your muscles cannot relax and cannot function properly without sufficient magnesium. Magnesium is one of the most deficient minerals in today's diet, Western diets, so making sure you're getting in enough magnesium is essential. Now, cacao is one of the greatest sources of bioavailable magnesium. The other source that I highly recommend are green leaves, any green leaves, wheatgrass, barley grass, green vegetable juice. Greens are really your source of magnesium. Magnesium is the central molecule of chlorophyll. So between chocolate and greens, you should be able to get all your magnesium needs met. The second reason I recommend cacao is for antioxidant concentration. Antioxidants are chemicals found in living whole foods or living foods that allow your body's cells to deal with oxidative stress internally. So cells are always being challenged internally through processes, body processes. Antioxidants allow them to stay healthier and vital for longer. And today, antioxidant consumption in food has dropped radically because most food eaten is highly processed and highly cooked, and then highly chemicalized. So making sure you're eating as many fresh fruits and vegetables as possible, that's where you get your antioxidants from. But cacao is one of the top antioxidant foods known. It's 10% by weight bioflavonoid antioxidants. And those are those purpley antioxidants that are quite rare in nature. And that is a massive amount of antioxidants. That's really what makes it one of the richest foods in the world for antioxidant concentration. It's no surprise then that most centenarians, people who live over 100 years old, one of their top 5 foods they consume is chocolate. So when you look at the antioxidant concentration in fruits and vegetables, it's not particularly high. I mean, a banana has 5, cherry 21, it gets a little bit higher, blackberry gets to 51, blueberry 61, and then you get to things like cacao nibs at 621. This is the ORAC scale that shows the difference in antioxidant concentration. So 621 is huge. But when you look at superfoods in general, and these are numbers that we've tested ourselves at the University of Western Cape, they have an ORAC testing facility there. Goji berries come in at 330 ORAC units. Spirulina comes in at 600 ORAC units. That's massive. When you get into cacao powder, you're getting 95,000 ORAC units. That's huge. It's absolutely massive. So this is why we're suggesting chocolate. And then brain food is the third reason I'd recommend eating cacao. Most people know this. When you're feeling a little down, you want a pickup, you want to feel better, chocolate is the go-to food. So there are a number of reasons why it's such a profound brain food. The first is a chemical called PEA, and PEA is abundant in the brains of happy people, as research shows. So it increases the activity of neurotransmitters in parts of the brain that control our ability to pay attention and stay alert. So when you're focused and you have that sense that you lose all track of time, that's PEA doing its job in your brain. So basically it increases when we're in those states. Anandamide is another chemical in cacao that's good for your brain. It's known as the bliss chemical because it's released when you're feeling great. And then tryptophan is the other one, and this is critical for the production of serotonin, and it's our primary neurotransmitter. It's basically known as our stress defense shield. If you do not have sufficient tryptophan in your brain, you are going to be way more susceptible to stresses in your life. So overall, this is a profound food for brain health. And there's one other chemical that I talk about, which is monoamine oxidase inhibitors. So MAOs basically allow more serotonin to float around in the brain so that you can notice the effects of the chocolate more. And chocolate happens to be rich in MO inhibitors. So it not only contains the chemicals that are going to make your brain feel good, it also contains a chemical that blocks those chemicals from being absorbed or broken down too early on in your gut. The reason why monoamine oxidase exists is that you don't dream while you're awake. That's during the daytime, monoamine oxidase breaks down any excessive brain chemicals, but at nighttime, obviously, it doesn't work so that you can dream. Unfortunately, in today's world, because people are so stressed, neurochemistry is completely out of balance. So trying to access nutrients, natural nutrients that allow you to, again, rebuild these chemicals is essential. And chocolate is pretty much the best antidepressant food I have found so far. So what does the science tell us about chocolate and health? Obviously, the things I've just mentioned, the science tells us. That's a summary. One of my favorite websites to get this kind of information from is greenmedinfo.com, greenmedinfo.com. So if you check out that website, /substance/cocoa, you'll see on there, what they do is they take research studies from all the major research portals, and then they just compile it for you to easily reference on this website. And they've got 118 diseases that have been researched for cocoa. I'll just run through it. Cardiovascular disease, 19 research papers. Diabetes, 11. Hypertension, 9. Coronary artery disease, stroke, heart failure, insulin resistance, obesity, arterial hardening, insulin elevated, so cognitive dysfunction decline, 3 studies. So just have a look there yourself. If you want to run through the science, you can have a look. There is a lot of science behind chocolate, and every year more science comes out. I recently had an article that came across my desk that showed that cacao is one of the most profound prebiotics. It feeds your good bacteria in your gut. And it's now known that gut health is brain health. If your gut and the bacteria in your gut are healthy, your entire system functions much better, particularly your brain. And the other thing that works much better is your immune system. Your immune system is literally located in your digestive system. Your digestive bacteria, or your biome, your microbiome, is predominantly responsible for strength of immunity. And cacao is feeding those good bacteria, so that's supporting your immunity. And right now, that's clearly a buzzword. So let me chat to you about our experience with cacao and sourcing cacao. Obviously, when we first discovered it in the UK, we loved it. We started eating it. We then came back to South Africa and started sharing the recipes that we had picked up and the information we had picked up at courses and workshops. And at that stage, we were sourcing raw cacao from England, from a supplier there. And then over the years, through a lot of traveling and online research, we went to South America and met cacao farmers in Ecuador and Peru, and we had an amazing supply chain from South America, which we pretty much used up until last year. And the reason that changed for us is that South American cacao, it's come out, is very high in heavy metals, particularly cadmium. Now, cadmium isn't great. I mean, cadmium doesn't bioaccumulate very well. It's very difficult to bioaccumulate. And I've seen some arguments that say that it's it competes for absorption with things like calcium and magnesium. So if you're consuming high levels of calcium, magnesium with cadmium, your cadmium is not going to be absorbed very well. But regardless, Europe passed new legislation last year that limited the amount of cadmium in foods, and cacao from South American countries tends to be high because it's grown in volcanic soil. Volcanic soil is high in all minerals. So unfortunately, legally, at least in Europe, high volcanic soil grown cacao is no longer legal to sell. Now in South Africa, obviously, we don't have any of those standards, but we do align ourselves to international standards to make sure that we're as high a quality as we can get. So we had to start looking for alternative sources. And after a lot of searching, we managed to find a source from West Africa, Ghana, and Ivory Coast. There are cooperatives there that we now got all the different cacao from. The reason it's taken so long is that up until now, I haven't been able to find anyone in Africa who actually processes cacao, firstly certified organic, and secondly raw. Most of the cacao, it goes to massive companies in Europe, where they just put it through processing like Dutching and high roasting processes. So finding a raw source of cacao was massively exciting for me towards the end of last year. And we got samples in, it tastes incredible. Basically, the cacao is certified organic. The cooperatives are aligned to the International Federation of Organic Agricultural Movements. So it's called IFOAM. What they basically do is they're a large overseeing body that relies on ecological processes, biodiversity, and natural cycles that adapt to local conditions. So it's much more than just certified organic. They're combining tradition, innovation, and science to benefit the environment and the people who are working in these plantations and in these wild harvested areas, because it's a blend of both of them. Again, I mentioned this is low temperature processed cacao, so it doesn't go above 50 degrees Celsius, which is incredibly hard to find. It's very difficult and expensive to extract cacao butter and cacao powder at low temperatures because you have to go so much slower. Most of these machines run at a high speed, making them very hot through friction alone. It can get to 120 degrees Celsius. That's another reason why raw cacao is just generally more expensive than cocoa. It's not a bulk commodity that's sold on the bulk commodity exchange market. It's small farmers, small growers, and small processors that are bringing this to people. What's amazing about it is its rich, deep chocolate flavor. So we have had various sources from South America over the years, and some of them come out very fruity and very acidic, but not very chocolatey. So we're very happy that right now we have one of the most delicious chocolatey cacao powders and cacao pastes that we've ever had. So I'm looking forward to you guys trying that. So one of the reasons the flavor has changed is that the type of cacao is Forastero. So there are three main types of cacao varieties. There's Criollo, Forastero, and Trinitario. And Criollo and Forastero tend to be the most common found that you know about. And there's some confusion around where these names come from and what they mean. You know, some people think that Criollo is the best and Forastero is the cheapest and Trinitario is somewhere in between. The history of the naming actually comes from Spanish. Criollo means native and Forastero means foreign. So when the Spanish invaders came into Mexico, they basically went, oh, the cacao that we found here, we're going to call the native cacao, which is Criollo. So that's where the wording comes from. But they weren't even correct. Cacao didn't originate or doesn't originate in Mexico. It originates in the Amazon jungle in a very small area, specific area of the Amazon jungle. And it's basically been spread out from there. And there are now over 12 different varieties that have been named. So there aren't just 3 anymore. The reason why Forastero tends to be the most common in cacao production is it's the strongest tree. It tends to be able to withstand diseases a lot better than the other trees. And it does particularly well in Africa. So most of the cacao grown in Africa is Forastero variety. But what's happened over the last 10 or so years is that cacao has gone through a hybridizing process. Hybridizing is trying to grow it for specific genetic strains. Things like CCN51 are more common now. So Forastero itself is not GMO. It's not hybridized at all. It is an old form of cacao, an heirloom form of cacao. So we're very, very excited about that. So I think that's it on the info section for you guys. If you have any questions about info, maybe now's a good time, and then I can get into doing a demo with Baron.